Moving elsewhere, the White House has announced that Education Secretary Betsy DeVos will lead a commission to find ways to protect schools from gun violence. Now, this announcement follows an interview that DeVos gave last night to Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes. It wasn't a good showing for the Education Secretary. That interview has been trending all day long on Twitter. DeVos is a big proponent of charter schools. You probably know that. But given the chance to explain what she's found wrong in the troubled traditional public schools, she couldn't say.
In places where there is a lot of choice that's been introduced, Florida, for example, the studies show that when there's a large number of students that opt to go to a different school or different schools, the traditional public schools, actually, the results get better as well.
Now, has that happened in Michigan? We're in Michigan. This is your home state.
Michigan, yes. Well, there's lots of great options and choices for students here.
Have the public schools in Michigan gotten better?
I don't know. Overall, I can't say overall that they have all gotten better.
The whole state is not doing well.
Well, there are certainly lots of pockets where the students are doing well.
But your argument that if you take funds away, that the schools will get better is not working in Michigan, where you had a huge impact and influence over the direction of the school system here.
I hesitate to talk about all schools in general because schools are made up of individual students attending them.
The public schools here are doing worse than they did.
Michigan schools need to do better. There is no doubt about it.
Have you seen the really bad schools? Maybe try to figure out what they're doing?
I have not intentionally visited schools that are underperforming.
Maybe you should.
Maybe I should, yes.
Now, reports out of the White House today say the White House and the president are very upset with the showing in that interview. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders chose not to respond to that 60 Minutes interview, didn't want to touch it today. Jeffrey Canada, you might remember that name. He might have jumped at the chance to talk about our failing school systems. He's become an expert. He's the founder and CEO of the Harlem Children's Zone. They sealed off more than 90 blocks of Harlem's poorest neighborhoods years ago and decided that every child in that zone would get a chance to go to college. It's working. They've closed the gap between black and white student achievement. They've graduated over 1,000 kids from college. He's been on 60 Minutes at least twice. Now, I sat down with Jeffrey Canada for Off Script back in October. We think it's worth taking another look and listen. What needs to be done with public education as you see it right now? So many of the young people not making it. They're dropping out, they're disinterested, and those that do graduate, they're not ready for college in the world of work.
So here's the real problem with public education. We don't follow the science. There are people right now who are running great schools right next to people who are running lousy schools. And do you think the folks would travel 3 blocks to see what's going on there that's different? In our business, there's this sense that I have to invent everything. And I'm not willing to go out and copy stuff. I tell folks, education is the only profession that you don't need patent attorneys. You can't give away a good idea. No one's trying to steal it. We know what to do. We just need folks to have permission to say, I want to learn. I want to know more. I want to figure out how you did that so I could bring that to my school and replicate that.
Public education, as you see it now, is it an outdated concept? Do we need longer school days? Do we need different kinds of schools?
You know, people think there was a science to why schools operate during the times, why they operate, and don't have school in the summertime, they don't have schools in the evenings, Saturdays. None of it's science. It's all just been habit, and what we need is the flexibility to figure out at each school what our kids need. If my kids need a longer school day, then I should be able to design that program to give them that. If you can do your school and your kids only need to be there 4 hours, then that's great. You do that for 4 hours. We need to be able to have permission for folks to think outside the box when it comes to education. This is what we do. We do the same thing that didn't work year after year, decade after decade with no change. I can take you to schools in the South Bronx that were lousy when I was a kid, close to 45 years ago, that are still lousy to this day, and they run exactly the same way. That's a lousy business plan.
Okay, for people who don't understand, what did you do with Harlem? You took 90-something blocks?
97 blocks.
How many schools?
And there are 5 public elementary schools, and we run 2 charter schools, and my kids go to all of those schools. I'm not into this fight over it. Should it be charter or should it be traditional public? I'm into let's just have kids with great schools so that they can be successful. And we do more than schools. We do social services, we do health, we do sports, we do arts. We try to build complete young people.
It sounds like you're talking about the socialization of the child and not just the education within those few hours.
What we know in certain communities, you've got to do more than just education. And that's what we're doing at the Harlem Children's Home.
What kind of results have you got?
Well, right now, you look at our latest test results, our kids, we've totally eliminated the achievement gap between black and white students. Totally gone, state tests, you can see it. Stuff is all public now and information. As I said, we've got 1,000 kids in college. We're graduating kids from college higher than whites are graduating from college right now, both from 4-year and 2-year degrees. So the question, and with the same kids, we can prove our kids are as disadvantaged as the kids who are going to traditionally public schools. So we can do it. It does take extra work. It costs money.
It's Jeffrey Canada. He's up in Harlem. He doesn't favor charter over public schools. He says figure out what the kids in each school need, then give it to them.